This is KSL Sunday Edition with Boyd Matheson.
Welcome to Sunday Edition. I am Boyd Matheson. Each Sunday we attempt to divide the rage from the reason, elevate the conversation, connect the dots, and make the news make sense. We have conversations with great thinkers, great leaders, and great people making a difference. We talk politics so we can discuss society, and we explore society so we can discuss principles and the people in America who actually live them. We bring the best and brightest to Utah, and we send the Utah model to our nation's capital and beyond. Well, someone who has been a driving force in shaping that Utah success model, applying it here in the Beehive State, and taking it to our nation's capital and beyond is Utah's 14th governor and former Secretary of Health and Human Services under the George W. Bush administration, Mike Leavitt. Governor Leavitt is a leader's leader. Throughout his time in public service, he lived a creed often forgotten or ignored in today's performative, arrogant, short-sighted power politics, which says, from obedience comes humility. From humility comes discernment. From discernment comes insight. And from insight comes foresight. Governor Leavitt is known for his foresight, for his ability to see around corners and strategically execute complex, legacy-creating initiatives. He joins us now to discuss his recently released memoir and crucial conversations that it's sparking about our future today. So, Governor, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Boyd. I'm pleased to be with you and the viewers.
Well, this has been an extraordinary project for you, looking at your time in public service. And I want you to kind of take us back to the beginning of this. This was no small task. You're releasing it online. I think it should be mandatory for everyone to read. But give us kind of the backstory. Where did this begin?
Well, the backstory of this actually started a long time ago. When I was about 12 years old, my father was elected to the legislature. And I was able to spend 1 week each year with him, shadowing him as a state legislator. Yeah. But the deal was, if I did so, I had to write a report on what I learned and what I observed. And I think it was in the spirit of that experience that I began years ago thinking I need to do something to repay the great privilege of doing public service. And a way might be to say, what did I learn and what did I observe? And it's taken a while, but I concluded I just need to put it out there while it might have some value.
Yeah, well, value it definitely has. And it's so interesting to look back at your time in public office and public service. And it really is so interesting, the parallels from where things were when you were in elected office to where we are today. There's a lot of similarities.
One of the things that occurred to me as I was assembling this is that everything I had written about in terms of the things that we worked on, the changes that were made during the time of my service that I think made a difference for 25 years or more, they're all happening again. We worked on the Olympics. We're going to have the Olympics. Yeah. We were building highways. We need to build highways again. Yeah. We worked hard to make Utah a technology capital. We were going through the introduction of the information age. We're now going into the AI age, and what did we learn from that? We were struggling with all kinds of issues that are repeating themselves today, and I think that's the value of looking back. It's not what happened in the past that's important. It's what can we learn from that allows us to meet the challenges of today. And all of these challenges will have to be met in slightly different ways because the circumstances are different.
Yeah, and this is clearly not a sit on the rocking chair looking backwards kind of exercise. This is a forward-facing, past is prologue kind of approach. And one of the things that has been driving a lot of your conversation is what you like to call the big gear principle. Explain that for us.
Well, another observation that I made of my experiences in public leadership is that there are hundreds of things, thousands of things you could take on. But you have a limited amount of time and bandwidth, and the state has limited amounts that it can invest in certain projects. So what do you focus on? And I began to realize that there are certain issues that have big cascading consequences. I like to tell the story of a clock that is in the governor's residence even today. and we were having it repaired, and one of my children, my daughter, was looking at it, and the clock repair person said, "Let me show you how this works." And he referred to all of the gears that started about the size of a dime and got much, much bigger until there was the one at the top about the size of a bike sprocket. He said, "Try to move the little gears." And she took her fingers and tried to move them and couldn't, and she said, "They're all caught." And he said, "Now move the big one." And so she turned the big gear, and he said, "What happens to the little gears?" And she said, "They all spin." And that was just a great metaphor to me of what happens in society. For example, the Olympics. It was a big gear. Not because we put on a big event and we did it successfully, but all the things that happened in the preparation for the Olympics. I think about the information age and moving and what we actually had to do to successfully become good enough to succeed. I've thought about rural Utah. I think about the sophistication of rural Utah today in terms of its capacity to be part of the modern economy and where it was 25 years ago. It is profound. And so all of those changes of the big gear have caused all of the little gears to align.
We're going to get in and talk about some of those specific gears, but before we go to break, just 1 minute on this whole idea of change. You have a pretty interesting philosophy in terms of how we can look at it, deal with it, and actually benefit from it.
I think all of this is about change. I remember, I heard a great entrepreneur in Utah, Ray Norda, make comments similar to what I have adopted as a personal philosophy, and it is that you really only have three choices when it comes to change. You can fight it and die because you'll be overcome by events. You can accept it and have a chance, or you can lead it and prosper. And I think that's what our state has done. I candidly think historically that's what the United States of America has done, is that we have led change. And the question isn't what we've done in the past. The question is, what will we do from here on?
Where are we today? Where are we going to be tomorrow? What do we have to do to get there? Well, we're going to talk about those big gears. We're going to stay with our conversation about winning the future by applying the lessons of the not too distant past with former Utah Governor Mike Leavitt when Sunday Edition continues here on KSL 5 TV. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sunday Edition. We're continuing our conversation with Mike Leavitt, former Utah Governor and HHS Secretary. Governor Leavitt has made his memoir available for free online at leavitthistory.com, leavitthistory.com. I think it should be mandatory study for anyone across the political spectrum before serving in any elected office. Not because Governor Leavitt got everything right, but because he didn't. And he had the humility and the wisdom to admit it, learn from it, and then authentically share it with the rest of us. And I think that's what leadership sounds like and acts like. And Governor, I want to get into some of those gears that you were moving at a very transformational time in the state and the nation. And I want to go back to something we talked about in the first segment around the Olympics and some of those gears. What was it that you had to get to from a leadership standpoint to be ready for that?
Very early, I recognized that the Olympics was an astonishingly large, complex event, but it lasted 17 days. And we needed to use the 7 years leading up to the Games as a period of time where that back pressure of having the world come here could be utilized. I mean, someone said, thank heaven for deadlines or nothing would get done. That gave us a powerful deadline. It was the basis on which our highways were reconstructed. And candidly, everyone got better at things. We had to be better. We learned we could compete with the world and win. We got better when they got here. So that was, I think, lesson number one. Recognize that a major part of the opportunity is between now and then to just get better. I think a second part was to realize that we needed to use the 1,000 days after the Games as an important time of improvement as well economically. And so when we began to form the Games plan, we weren't thinking just about the 17 days. We were thinking, what is it we want to accomplish economically in the next 1,000 days? And we invited guests who could help us, who could move businesses here, or who had technologies that could be valuable. We were working to build our reputation in a way that would allow the benefit of the games. And so I would say those are two lessons that we should take away. Don't waste the next 7 years just getting ready for an event. Use them for the way to make the state perpetually better.
I love that. And I love that whole idea of we get so target driven in our world today. We hit some of the Olympics, the 17 days of the Olympic were a great target. But you have to look at that punch through. What do we want to happen the next 1,000 days? And after that, in terms of vision, give us some application of those same principles as you look at areas like education, where we are where we are, but we're going to be creating things for jobs that don't even exist yet. How do we go about that?
I think one of the major lessons I took away from my time in public service is that you have to be very cautious about what it is you measure. Because real progress comes in the competencies that students develop and the ways that they can apply it. It's very easy to get caught up in the context of just a factory model where we're putting students, whether they're adults or children, through a process and we're checking boxes, as opposed to what are we aligning our education with? There's a certain value in education just for citizenship, but it's also critical for a good economy. And so are we preparing our children and our adults for the economy as it's going to be, not as it has been? Yeah, that next step is always what that's about. One of the other things that you often talk about is we actually use this as a motto with my grandchildren now, and that is the absolute predictability of consequences. You've seen that from a leadership standpoint, and what happens when you don't lead, or that you just hit the target, or you squander that time. And many feel that Utah is in that moment, quickly becoming not just a crossroads to the West, but a crossroads to the world. But right now seems to be pretty pivotal in terms of our ability to do that in the future. I'll use as an example an initiative that I look back on as one of the most important things we did. We called it the Engineering Initiative. It was an effort to multiply the number of engineers that we developed in our colleges and universities. We realized that we couldn't do that and simply focus on colleges and universities. We had to change what happened in high school and in junior high school in order to do it. Over the course of that, of the last 25 years, I was told the other day that they have now graduated 60,000 engineers in Utah collectively in that period. That has a powerful impact on the capacity of the state to prosper. Now, the question is, what now? Because what we were preparing those 60,000 for is changing with AI and with biotech. And are we being intentional enough about what's coming to prepare? And I've suggested maybe it's time for another engineering initiative or something that begins to drive us to a very well thought out objective.
So important. Just in our last 30 seconds, give us a leadership principle we all ought to be thinking about as we look to the future.
Well, we all ought to remember that leadership, in whatever form it comes, is a generational relay. We all build on what other leaders have done, and a big objective of all of us should be to leave it better than we found it and to give it all we have.
Yeah. Fantastic. Former Governor of the state of Utah, Mike Leavitt, someone who understands leadership in an extraordinary way. Thanks for joining us. And an extraordinary work. Everyone should check out the memoir, LeavittHistory.com. Important lesson for so many of us, not just those in public service. I think it's a lesson for everyone in terms of how we learn from the past so we can live a better future and leave a better future for those that come behind us. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Boyd.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to go even one step further. We're going to explore a 100-year look forward, recognizing that poking holes in the past is easy and can actually be kind of cowardly, while writing the future takes real courage. Stay with us. More Sunday Edition coming up next on KSL 5 TV. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sunday Edition. You know, poking holes in the past is easy and can be cowardly. Writing the future, however, is hard and requires real courage. It's become an obsession for some and casual sport for others to look back on history and reframe, recast, and reimagine what happened and why. With audacious certainty, the experts declare the motives and character of complex individuals who lived in less advanced societies. Acknowledging and even confronting the whole of our history, warts and all, is vital and important. But let's be honest, poking holes in heroes from the past and picking on heroines of bygone eras is pretty easy. It doesn't require much moral fiber, rigorous research, or even a whole lot of open-mindedness. Some media and academic elites, along with progressive historians, have begun to wear their bullying of historical figures as a badge of honor. Now, for the tough on history cancel culture crowd, I have a different kind of challenge that will require real courage, not the hold my pen, I'm going after the founding fathers variety. You see, real courage demands authentic vulnerability and humility. So the challenge is to write the future. Between 1975 and 1979, Ronald Reagan recorded more than 1,000 daily radio broadcasts. He'd just completed serving as governor of California and would not be sworn in as president of the United States until 1981. He had no staff and wrote the vast majority of his scripts on his own. Many of these broadcasts have been captured and shared in an audio series titled Reagan in His Own Voice. The handwritten messages, approximately 500 to 600 words each, could be played on radio or television today and be just as correct and just as poignant as they were in the mid to late 1970s. I recently listened to one of those 3-minute messages from Ronald Reagan on why writing the future is not for the faint of heart, but it is an effort that's worth it. Reagan noted how he and his political peers could and would, somewhat glibly, talk about how the decisions they were making would shape the world for 100 years to come. Now, here we are in 2024. We're still a long way from the November election, yet we've already been lectured by people on both ends of the political spectrum about how our votes and choices this year will determine the destiny of our nation. Well, the former governor of California was given an interesting challenge in 1976 that would test his willingness to actually write the future. Reagan had been petitioned to write a letter for a time capsule, which would be opened 100 years into the future in 2076. The occasion in 2076 would include the city of Los Angeles' bicentennial and America's tricentennial celebration. The suggestion to Reagan from the Time Capsule Committee was that Reagan focus his letters on some of the problems confronting the American people and the government during the 1976 election cycle. At first, Reagan figured it would be pretty easy for him to write the future, as he'd been talking about the future, the challenges facing the nation on a regular basis for years. He figured he could do this in his sleep. So Reagan began writing his letter to the future as he was being driven by car down the Pacific Coast Highway in California. He said the simple drafting of a letter became a rather difficult and incredibly complex chore as he began to consider, well, what do you put in a letter that's going to be read 100 years from now in the year 2076? What do you say about our problems today when those who read the letter will know what we don't know? Namely, they will know how well we did with those problems. In short, they will be living in the world we helped to shape. Then, in a hefty dose of reality, Reagan humbly asked, will they read the letter with gratitude in their hearts for what we did, or will they be bitter because the heritage we left them was one of misery? Reagan wrote of the problems facing America and its citizens in 1976, including big government, excessive spending, the loss of individual liberty, the undermining of the inspired course set by the Founding Fathers, and that the two great superpowers, America and the then Soviet Union, were pointing nuclear weapons at each other. Reagan noted, those who read my letter will know whether those missiles were fired or not. Either they will be surrounded by the same beauty we know now, or they will wonder, sadly, what it was like when the world was still beautiful. Ever the optimist, Reagan concluded his writing the future with the ultimate litmus test for every citizen. If we here today meet the challenges confronting us, those who open that time capsule 100 years from now will do so in beauty, peace, prosperity, and the ultimate in personal freedom. If we don't keep our rendezvous with destiny, The letter probably will never be read because they will live in the world we left them, a world in which no one is allowed to read, have individual liberty, or freedom of choice. Again, it doesn't take much courage to cast aspersions or pass judgment on those who are not around to defend themselves. So I would challenge those same people who are attempting to rewrite history to instead write the future, knowing that those who will read your letter 100 years from now will know with certainty whether you were right or wrong. So write your letter, print it, post it, etch it in stone, see how confident you are in what you think you know. Writing the future while living in the present is difficult, but it's actually worthy of our individual effort. So consideration for all of us here in 2024, here are some of the questions to get you started in your letter writing the future. So in the year 2124, how will citizens look on those of us living in 2024? Will they be grateful for the decisions we made? Will they see that our commitment to equality, justice, and ending prejudice and discrimination was a hinge point in history? Will they say we were a narcissistic society unwilling to come together for the common good? Will the people of 2124 see that we preserved individual freedom, religious liberty, and the First Amendment? Will our choices regarding stewardship of the environment inspire or infuriate? Will they applaud the difficult decisions we made regarding the national debt? How will they feel we did in striving to live up to the principles the founders of America put on parchment in 1776 and 1787? Will those principles still stand as a beacon of hope to the world? Remember, those who will read your letter will know what we currently don't know. They will be able to criticize our arrogance and ignorance as well as condemn our unenlightened naivete in this year. They will, in truth, live in the world we left them, a world shaped by our decisions today. I think we could certainly benefit from spending a little less time attacking and attempting to cancel figures and the founding principles of the past, and giving a little more effort determining our individual and collective roles in writing the future. The future truly belongs to the brave. If we wish to write the future of tomorrow, each of us must do so by living our lives with excellence and compassion today. Well, that wraps it up for us here on Sunday Edition. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us. And as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference. Music and the spoken word is next.